Hey guys, welcome to Ask Me Anything, Alita. I would like to apologize first because it took a little while, right? Before the first answers were coming. But they're coming now, at least. So that's really good. So, first question is Takutu, if I say that right. And the question that you have is, what was your inspiration for Motorball? Did the director or writers tell you what they wanted, or did you use the original source for inspiration? Neither, both, or something else. Incredible atmospheric sci-fi soundtrack. We absolutely loved it. Well, thank you very much. Well, there was really nothing in the temp for that specific section of the movie. It happens like 4 or 5 times in the movie. But what James Cameron really wanted to hear there was a rock concert. So that was the guide. It needs to sound like a rock concert. And so I started to work on a track, and this is like the ultimate section of the movie where I can go all out with like aggressive electronic sounds and with orchestral elements with it, but really aggressive electronic sounds. There were not a whole lot of spots in the movie where that really worked. So this was the perfect spot to do it, and that eventually became a Motorball. And when I played it to them, they were very excited about the idea that it sounded like a rock concert. So I was happy that they liked it, because it's a piece of music that is literally pretty far removed from what James Cameron normally would use in his films. So I was really happy that he liked it. Robert Rodriguez was immediately liking it. So it was really great that that worked out. There's a couple of more questions coming up regarding this Motorball thing, so I'm going to keep this one relatively short. The next one is from Meat Boy. Well, Meat Boy, he says, excellent work on the score. Love your use of sweeping emotional sounds mixed with heavy electronics. Really captures the human-cyborg dynamic. My question is, were there any instruments specifically that you wanted to use that you thought would best capture this dynamic? Well, the job description that I got from James Cameron, producer, Robert Rodriguez, director, and John Landau, the producer, the three of them were very unanimous in what they wanted from this movie. And the most important thing is that we need to feel the journey of Alita throughout the movie. And we need to feel the heart of the movie. We need to stay close to her in her developments. She kind of wakes up after 300 years and doesn't remember anything. She needs to discover the whole world. She's discovering what love is. So she discovers what it is to have a father-daughter relationship. Becoming this heroine throughout the movie, dealing with danger, discovering her powers. So it was very important to stay close to her. And since she's already a CGI generated character, we tried different types of tones, and the things that didn't work that well were things that were 100% electronic. So that's why the palette for her is more orchestral and it's more smaller in nature. There is a lot of mellow sound design going on around her character to emphasize it a little bit and to give it a little bit more floating energy, if you will, and to make it like really cinematic. But that's really for her. Now, the other characters are relatively organic in nature too, except for Grewishka, which is the first bad guy that we meet. But we also find out throughout the film that Grewishka is part of like a bigger plot. So the characters that are part of that plot all get that very dark electronic score with orchestral elements to it, especially brass and very aggressive strings. And then Motorball, what we just discussed, which is that event, which is like almost 100% electronic and very brutal in nature to underscore the quality of the city and the surrounding world that we're in. I hope that answers your question. Then we have somebody who is called the Friendly Neighborhood Chloroplast. Very interesting name. How did you choose a key when you set out to compose a new piece? Specifically, why use one major minor key over another? I think this is a very interesting question. Now, what's very important to realize is that obviously you can write in any key that you want. I would say every key has its own quality to it. For instance, C sounds very grounded. It's the lowest note you can play on most of the instruments. It's a very grounded key. D major feels very up and very energetic. E flat minor, for instance, has a very silky, sad quality to it, whereas A minor is sad, but it can also feel more up and more positive. So every key has a very, very unique quality to it. So the reason how I decide to go with a certain key has a lot to do with my lower notes, how I want to end up with my chord progression. So Alita's theme is an A minor. So it has a sad quality to it, but I can also go up, and it means that if I have a descending bass line, I make it all the way down to C, and then I can jump up to a different chord. So this is totally like a personal choice, totally subjective. It also has a lot to do with the fact if you play an instrument live, what keys you are comfortable in playing it. So for instance, when I play piano, I'm fine in A minor, I'm fine in D major, I'm fine in C major, I'm fine in A flat major, I'm fine in F minor, G minor. But if you ask me to play a piece of music in C sharp minor, like I would really have to study that. But luckily we work with computers, so in the key edit that's not a problem, because you just move notes around and you're not limited by how you actually play a certain instrument. So I would also highly advise to write more in the key edit than basically just what you are able to play yourself on a keyboard, because what you can play is always limiting, but in your mind you can take it anywhere you want, and the computer is there to help you with that. So I hope that answers that question. Matteo Cremonleoni. Loini. I hope I say that right. Can you? I have to say though, this was the same with YouTube Live that we did like a while back. So many exotic people from all over the world following this channel. It's just remarkable. It's just really great. So I love that you guys are giving me a hard time how to pronounce your name, but I'm trying to do my best. Can you explain the quantization of your MIDI parts? It seems you quantize a lot on the beat and don't leave a part as played. The result is excellent. Well, I do quantize a lot on the beat, and the reason why I can do that is because the samples that are being driven by this quantized piece of MIDI are live played instruments, and so there's a messiness built into these instruments, whether it's strings or brass, but even my own guitar instruments, my own drum instruments, even the sound instruments and bass guitars, there's a messiness built into the patch. So I don't need to iterative, do all kinds of weird stuff with my quantizing. I could just do a hard quantize and then I get something back that actually feels live enough. For certain type of instruments, I do use a lot of iterative quantize. Usually the downbeat is like tight, but then everything within 2 or 4 bars is just kind of loose, and then after 4 bars there's a tight downbeat and then it starts all again. This is a matter of taste, as long as the audio result is good. So whatever the MIDI is that you look at, you have to judge it by what you're hearing coming from the samples, whether you want to make it more loose or whether you want to make it more tight. So I hope that answers your question. Tehage, another exotic name. I hope I say this right. How do you keep or make yourself creative, generative when you're not? But you have to finish the score on time. Maybe there were several moments during the making of Alita's score that you were not satisfied and a lot of information was missing to finish it. Well, this is always like a hot topic, and you know, for all your young aspiring composers out there, I'm sure you look at this YouTube channel and you look at a documentary about Hans Zimmer, and you look about a documentary about Danny Elfman or John Williams, and you think that these are all like superhuman beings that are on wow power like at any moment in time every day, and they continuously write genius music every minute of the day. Well, you couldn't be farther from the truth on that. We are all just human beings, like anybody out there. We deal with time periods of depression, time periods of being extremely joyful, time periods of being extremely creative and writing a lot of music a day, and other moments where simply nothing is happening. And it's a very normal thing, it's a very human thing. So how does it work with me, and how did it work with this movie? In general, I try to hit the gas pedal really hard right at the beginning of the start of a movie, because that's the moment where you're super fresh, you're very inspired, you're in contact with a director and a script and a movie that you've never seen before, or you've never heard before, or it's a reoccurring working relationship with the director that you haven't worked with for 2 and 3 years. And so there's a lot of excitement in the beginning. And that excitement in the beginning you should use to create as much music as you can. Because down the road, the grind will start. You know, when you're a year into a movie and you have to listen to your own music again and again and again, it's very hard to stay very positive and very excited about what you made, because you've been listening to it for a year already. So this is very normal. So I try to hit it very hard at the beginning, so I have breathing room on the back end. And breathing room on the back end means that if I'm not feeling it a certain day, I can just allow myself to take 2 days off, even though the deadline is like 5 days away or 6 days away, because I spend so much energy at the beginning of my projects that I can allow myself to take like 1 or 2 days off to refresh myself and then start again. And the next question that you didn't ask, but I'm gonna ask it for you, is like, well, what do you do when you feel in a situation like that and you feel down and you feel like not inspired or whatever? And that's usually when I spend time on cooking. I go into the kitchen, I make like a multiple course meal for my assistants, or for my wife and kids, or for friends, and I spend 1 or 2 days cooking, and I attack that with the same precision as I do with music, and it kind of just really releases the stress, and I can see things very clearly, what I need to be doing from that point on. So I hope that answers your question. And the next question is from Alexandra Criado. Again, a very exotic name. I hope I said that right. Why the choice of an almost full symphonic score? I really like this kind of music, but I am a big fan of the 90s cyberpunk such as Alita, and I was hoping for some deep, powerful, atmospheric electro in this dark wave stuff. Love the score though. Thanks, man. And I would like to say that it has to do with what the character of the movie is. If this were just an action flick where there wasn't really like a personal journey of a little girl that we needed to follow, yes, it would have been perfect to do. Let me read that again, because I think it's absolutely brilliant. Electro in this dark wave stuff. Okay, we should save that in the pocket somewhere. So for this movie, it was better to focus on orchestral elements, and only when Alita is not part of the emotional journey, then we just go like all electronic, like the Motorball scene and some of the Grishka scenes, or some of the fight scenes. But the music surrounding her needed to be more organic and smaller and more towards her. And the electro indus dark wave stuff around her was not necessarily perfect, but it was great for the Motorball scene. So I hope that answers your question. Jacob A. Cadmus, sorry, excuse me. Jacob A. Cadmus. What scene or handful of scenes had you the most emotionally invested? There's a couple of scenes. The last scene when Hugo and Alita run up the tubes and they want to get to Zalem, and then the ring comes down, Hugo falls, Hugo then dies, and then we see the transformation of her, and she goes back into the stadium and she raises a sword. That took some time to get that scene really right. The second one is the whole opening. So we see the spaceship, we hear a little bit about the history about the world and Zalem, and we see Ido in the rubble. He picks up the face of Alita, then we go to the lab, he attaches the body to it, to the point where she wakes up, she goes down, introductory talk with Ido and with Dr. Gerbert and with Alita. Then she goes outside and she sees the world. Those two scenes took quite some time. And that's also where film scoring becomes really tough. And boy, was I glad to work with these incredible filmmakers, because they explain to you what they're looking for and what is important and what's not important. They're not telling me use this piece of music or use that piece of music. That's not what these discussions are about. These discussions are about like what a person is feeling or what a person is discovering, and what music should be telling you as an audience, to then make that journey believable, but also emotionally satisfactory. So it's important not to overscore those scenes where the music is like too much and it's saying too much to the audience. So the music needs to take a back seat, but then at the same time it needs to do enough to then tell the story of what's happening on screen. So these were the two scenes that I invested the most amount of time in. So I hope that answers your question. This is a good name. Obi-Wan Kino 2. How long did the process take? You're awesome, with a smiley. Well, thank you. You're awesome too. Obi-Wan Kino 2. So I think Alita altogether took 12 months, 14 months, something like that. So I started to write the initial theme for her, I'm thinking now, July, August 17. And then we really started to work on the movie from January, like scene by scene. I wrote a lot of, the Motorball suite was written in September 17. The Grishka theme was written in September 17. And then January 18, I really started to work on a scene by scene basis. And then we had music review meetings and so forth. And then eventually we recorded the score, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in September. Then I had to mix everything, prepare the soundtrack, deliver everything to the dubbing stage. So yeah, it took quite some time, you know, like every movie. So I hope that answers your question. What was the toughest process that can happen in this movie? And Blended is asking me this question. Let me read that right. What was the toughest process that happened to this movie? The toughest process. I'm not sure what you mean, but I guess like what was the moment that was the toughest throughout the process of making the score for this movie? And my answer is there was not really one. There's a lot of movies that I worked on where I would have multiple examples, but this movie was actually very, very smooth. It was everybody was on the same page. What needed to happen musically. And it took me a long time to do it. I did get a lot of notes from the directors and the producers. It's not like I delivered a piece of music and everybody was like, hey, Tom, that's great. No, it doesn't work like that. I got notes and then notes and then notes. And the notes are not like do something else or do something this. It's not like that, but it's like when you watch the picture, it's like, oh, here you should stop. Or just stop a little later. Or add something else here because it needs to be a little bit more dramatic. Can we go a little bit quieter here? So a lot of like notes like that. But it was actually a very smooth process, and it was a really pleasurable collaboration between the whole team. I do want to give a shout out to Steve Rifkin, who is the picture editor on this movie, who has been working with Cameron for many years. He's an incredible picture editor, and his sense of music is quite remarkable. And so it's incredible for a composer to work with a picture editor that has so much knowledge about music and how music works to pictures. So it happened a lot when I would send out a cue that I thought I was happy with, and then he would make some cuts and move stuff around, and he would play it to me, and he would say, oh, I think it works better like this. And I would watch it, and it's like, wow, incredible, you know. But that's when you work with a guy that has so much experience as Steve. So it was a great collaboration. The last question that I have here is, have you seen the anime or read the manga prior to composing? No, I did not. And the thing is, like, when you get offered a movie that is based on a manga, or it's based on another movie, or it's based on a book, and if you have read the mangas and if you have read the books and if you have seen the other movie, okay, there's nothing you can do about it, right? I mean, like, you've already done it. But if you haven't, then I usually stay away from it, because the mangas might give me a whole different idea about what the movie actually is, and I just have to deal with the movie in front of me. You know, I cannot deal with something that came out 20, 30 years ago or 10 years ago. I just have to deal with the movie in front of me. So that's the only thing that I do. So after the movie was done, after I delivered the music, after the premiere, that's when I started looking into, you know, the manga comics, because now I'm interested. It's like, oh, now I want to know this and I want to know that. And so I don't want to be fooled when I'm working on a movie that certain things are not in the movie, even though I know they happened. And why would I know that? Because I've seen the other movie, or I've read the book, or I have seen the manga strips. And that's not what you want. You want to be focused on the movie in front of you. So if there are things not quite right, you need to be focused on that. And it's kind of like when you hang out with friends and then you say like, oh, I really love blue. Blue is my favorite color. And you keep saying it over and over again. Blue is my favorite color. Blue is my favorite color. And now you make a movie with your friends and you just go out and buy a blue car. For your friends, it's like a total normal thing, because you've been saying over and over and over again that blue is your favorite color. But in the movie, you're actually not saying that blue is your favorite color. We just see you buying a blue car. And we're just wondering, why did he pick a blue car? And then the friends are like, oh, yeah, because blue is his favorite color. It's like, okay, great. He told you that in person multiple times, but where in the movie do you hear that he says, blue is my favorite color? So these are things that are, you know, important to keep in mind when you work on a movie, especially when it's like a franchise movie that is linked to other movies released in the past, or books or mangas or whatever. Those were the questions, guys. Thank you so much. I hope I answered them as good as you guys would like. You know the drill. Any questions that you might have, just leave them right below, or any of the movies that you see on Studio Time. Always leave the questions below. We'll scan them every week and we'll compile the most interesting ones. And like we did right now, we're just gonna answer them. Thank you for being here. Thanks for watching this, and I hope to see you soon. Take care.